Hello, welcome to our story time. Today we have a book from one of our author friends and we're going to see what we got. The Dragon Who Got the Fairy Godmother to Like Vegetables by Karen Magnan. Let's tell Miss Karen thank you.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
The Dragon Who Got the Fairy Godmother to Like Vegetables by Karen Magnan. Once upon a time, there was a magical pink dragon called Rosie. Rosie lived in a big pink castle, and she was the queen of all the animals in the land of the fairy kingdom. She was a gentle dragon who had lots of friends. Rosie wanted everyone to get along and be nice to one another, even the mighty T-Rex. In fact, it was the rule of the land. The animals could not eat meat here, of course, but there were plenty of other things for them to snack on. Rosie created chocolate chip cookie trees and lollipop trees. There were bushes with gumballs instead of berries, and there were always plenty of cheese, crackers, and cupcakes. The pixies who lived among the animals helped make everything grow. They liked fruit, berries, and vegetables, so these grew everywhere too. Rosie loves to eat everything, especially the vegetables. Unfortunately, many of the other animals did not care for many of the vegetables, although they would eat the fruit. It drove Rosie crazy to see all those vegetables go to waste, but she could not get the pixies to stop growing vegetables. Rosie tried to eat most of them, but still had to throw many vegetables away because there was just too much for her to eat herself. Secretly, Rosie was sure the pixies grew extra vegetables just to drive her crazy. They had quite a sense of humor. One day, she had an unexpected visitor. It was the fairy godmother, the queen of the fairy kingdom. She had decided to visit the animals to see how they were doing. Rosie was so happy and honored to see her. She proudly showed her around so the fairy godmother could see how well she was taking care of everything. She also told the fairy godmother about the vegetables the pixies were growing and pointed them out as they walked. Rosie told her how she kept trying to get the animals to eat the vegetables, but usually ended up eating most of them herself. Rosie said, "Those pixies do drive me crazy sometimes. I wish there was someone else who liked vegetables as much as I do. I am sure you enjoy vegetables and understand my frustration." Rosie thought the fairy godmother would laugh. Instead, she said nothing. Either the fairy godmother did not have a sense of humor, or she was not listening. Rosie continued to chat away. Nothing. Finally, frustrated, Rosie stopped and turned to the fairy godmother and said, "Dearest godmother, I have been trying to get you to laugh all morning, but you are either not paying attention or you do not have a sense of humor. I mean no disrespect, but which is it?" "Truthfully, Rosie," she said very seriously, "I am trying not to respond because I am trying to leave here by lunchtime. I am afraid you will invite me to lunch, and being polite, I would have to accept. Actually, I am siding with the other animals. I don't like vegetables either. Those pixies also drive me crazy." They both burst into laughter. Rosie said very innocently, "Lucky for you, I am busy at lunch, so I guess there is only one thing left to say." She paused with a twinkle in her eye and a crooked smile, then continued, "Since we cannot do lunch, I will have to invite you to dinner." The fairy godmother roared with laughter, then replied, "That is so unfair. I just told you I am too polite to say no. Now I have to accept, but on one condition, no broccoli or green beans, okay?" Rosie just smiled and said, "No broccoli or green beans. I got it. Will 6 o'clock be good for you?" Fairy Godmother nodded and walked away laughing, muttering to herself, "Now I remember why I do not visit here often." Precisely at 6, the Fairy Godmother returned to the animal kingdom. Besides being very polite, she always made sure she was on time. Rosie opened the door and said, "Good evening, my dear Godmother. Please come in and have a seat. We will have dinner in a little while." The Fairy Godmother smiled and replied, "Thank you and good evening, my dear." They sat in the parlor for a while, talking and laughing. The Fairy Godmother had to admit she hadn't laughed so much in eons. "It is now time for dinner, so let us go over to the dining table," Rosie announced. "Great, I am starving," the Fairy Godmother said. She sat down at the head of the table in a big chair. Rosie brought in the dinner cart and placed a covered plate in front of her, then put one in her own place. Of course, there was no chair necessary for Rosie. She was too big to fit in one. "Let us see what we have here," the Fairy Godmother said. Smiling, she lifted the lid and burst out laughing. On her plate was asparagus, spinach, peas, carrots, and yellow and green squash. There was also a salad in a separate bowl. "I thought we had an agreement here, Rosie," the Fairy Godmother laughed. Rosie smiled and said, "You specifically said no broccoli or green beans, so I did not break our agreement. Of course, it would be polite to at least try the vegetables. I did go to a lot of trouble. If you do not like them, I will bring out the fruit and cheese, okay?" The Fairy Godmother laughed and shook her head. Okay, you have a deal." "Rosie, what am I going to do with you? You are the only one who would do this. Only you." "Well, here goes nothing. No harm in at least trying them." She started with her salad and then took a bite of asparagus and just said, Then she moved on to the spinach, then the peas, and continued until she had tried them all. She didn't say anything other than, interesting. Finally, she ate every morsel on her plate. Finished, she just sat there, saying nothing, cleaning her teeth with a toothpick. Rosie could not take it anymore and finally asked, "Well, what did you think about dinner? Did you enjoy it?" "Oh, did I enjoy dinner?" the Fairy Godmother repeated. "Rosie, you are either quite a chef or a great magician, because for the first time in my entire existence, I ate vegetables. I loved every bite. How did you do it?" she roared with laughter. Rosie was so relieved, she roared right along with her. "That is a secret, dearest Fairy Godmother," she replied. The Fairy Godmother laughed again, saying, "Well, then, I guess if that is the way it is going to be, you can accept me for dinner every night at 6 from now on. That was the best meal I have ever eaten, and the most I have laughed in ages. How about those cheese and crackers you promised?" Rosie laughed again. "That, dearest Godmother, would be my greatest pleasure and delight. Finally, someone who appreciates my cooking. I will get the fruit and the cheese and crackers. We also have cupcakes for dessert. Tomorrow we try broccoli and green beans. If you can get me to like broccoli and green beans, you are a miracle worker," the Fairy Godmother laughed. They have had a dinner together every night since, and their nightly laughter is heard throughout the animal kingdom and the fairy realm. Everyone knows when the Fairy Godmother is having dinner with her best friend, Rosie, the magical pink dragon, the miracle worker who got the Fairy Godmother to like broccoli and green beans and eat all her vegetables. The pixies are also very happy. They now grow lots of vegetables for the Fairy Godmother and Rosie's nightly dinners. The end. Let's tell Miss Karen thank you again for sending us this book.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
Thank you, Miss Karen. And if you enjoyed our video, please subscribe to our channel and like it. Bye.
Bye.